Welcome to Season 2 of the SOAR podcast, the place for creative entrepreneurs who want to build healthier, happier, more profitable self-employed businesses. I'm your host, Ray Hyde Cornell, business mentor at Chiron Consulting and CEO and senior copywriter at Cornell Content Marketing. Get ready to soar. Welcome to the SOAR podcast. Today we have with us Josh Greene. Josh, tell our listeners about what it is you do.
Hey, thank you so much for having me on the show today. So I think I'll just share, I'm building a company called Groove with my two wonderful co-founders and team. And really, we were really looking in our own lives. We were solopreneurs, freelancers, working as individuals in a variety of different ways in our own lives. And as COVID hit and we were shifting into working from home more, I'd always worked in a co-working space. I'd always had that sort of like social dimension in my work.
Yeah.
But once you take that away from me, work's just not as fun. and that we all ride on the social energy of being connected to the people around us, especially as we'd all had formal jobs in the corporate world at some point in our career. So we started out building Groove, which really is like a social digital workspace for people that don't have a team, that want to discover people, that want accountability and the productivity that comes from the structure that you might have had in your workplace, whether you were answerable to a boss or to the people around you. And we've started by building co-working sessions that people can jump into. They're 50 minutes long. They can choose to do it with their friends. They can meet other people on the platform, but really to start to build the architecture of what does it mean to bring people together in meaningful ways that fit into their workday rather than add a social dimension around their workday. No happy hours or meetups, virtual Zoom rooms with 1,000 people, but just small intimate spaces where people can get that connection, can get that support, and be productive and effective at accomplishing their professional goals.
I think that's a brilliant idea because, I tend to think of freelancers and entrepreneurs, especially the ones that tend to be attracted to my little world here, as introverts. And I'm a super mega introvert myself. And yet at the same time, those co-working sessions, when you get a bunch of people, not like you said, not 200, not 50 people, but just a small little group of maybe a half dozen or so, and you all commit, okay, this is what I'm working on, let's do it. It's like you're put into this situation of enhanced accountability. And it's great for busting through resistance on projects that you've been procrastinating on, or just like, oh, I don't want to have to look at this, but I know I need to get it done. Those are the best things, in my opinion, to bring to those sessions. And it's great for the extroverts who miss being in kind of that social environment in that office space, but also for the introverts who, as much as we like to think that we want to stay in our own little bubble all the time, we do need that social connection and that accountability and not feeling so lonely all the time. So for you and your team, was this more of a, and maybe it was both, was this more of a we need to get shit done kind of situation? Or was this a, man, we were just so tired of feeling isolated and lonely in our little work from home bubbles?
Yeah, it's interesting that you asked the question like that. And I think that's our ongoing conversation in Groove. Because Tova, my co-founder, she's an introvert, and Srili, my other co-founder, borders the line. I'm never sure which he is, depending on which day which day it is. And I clearly fit into the extrovert camp. But actually, I think the best way to look at it for me is to look at our experience at the office. The office was really designed to be a space that you accomplish your work, right? Yeah. That's why you go there.
Yeah.
But the reason that people stay in a job or stay in a company is for the people that they're connected with. And you can't break them apart. People often talk about, I want to recreate this holy grail water cooler moment that is really important in people's days. But it's important to remember where the water cooler is. The water cooler isn't on the street corner. It's not in a park. It's in the office.
Yeah.
And the best example of this relationship that they're both critical to us thriving in our work is I don't know, the time before and after meetings is always the best time. You
Yeah.
schmooze, you settle down, you figure out like who are the people, what's going on, what did you watch on TV last night? You get into the meeting, and at the end, then you go back to this really organic social connection.
Yeah.
That's really grooving. Back to your point of the intimate space, we're here to be productive. We're here to accomplish stuff. And within that container, it can speak to both the introvert and extrovert. And the wonderful thing about that, from a speaking as I speak to introverts, not as an introvert, but they often say that it's really nice. There's only ever up to 4 people in the group. So it's always a small, and it could be 2. So 2, 3, or 4. And there's a structure to the sharing. So I don't have the pressure of I've got to figure out what to say, or I have to make small talk, or I have to find it. I'm going to come in, I'm going to share what I want to accomplish. I'm going to introduce myself. And the app actually takes me through that process. So everyone gets to share before the work time starts. And you're not on video the whole time. You're on video at the beginning and video at the end. So there's this just great way that for me, it's the networking that I never got in my life, because I don't want to go and build relationships and spend lots of time, virtual coffees. But actually, I just get to meet people very authentically. They get, we all just want to show up in our work day as we are and not have to put on a suit and tie and pretend to be someone else. When I groove with people throughout my day, and especially as what it allows you to do is turn a big day of work into structured moments and share that journey, then I now get to really be like, oh, this is a safe way for me to connect. This is a nourishing way for me to meet, but there's no expectation. We're about building relationships, not about selling or pitching or networking,
Yeah. And it's interesting that you talk about the 10 to 15 minutes before and after meetings being the best time, because I had never really thought about that. But I have a couple clients who we do standing weekly meetings on the Cornell content marketing side. And at the beginning of every meeting, we're talking about nothing related to work. I mean, I was just talking to a client this morning about, I'm picking up curbside groceries, I'll be at the meeting in just a few minutes, and it's those little things that, we were in a meeting the other day, and one of my clients is looking out his window and he goes, Brazilians are so weird, because he just moved to Brazil to be with his wife. They just recently got married and relocated. And it's just those little things where we're just observing our worlds, talking about what's going on. It has nothing to do with work, but we start these organic, random conversations that actually make you feel connected to the person that you're working with on more of a human level, as opposed to, okay, this is the deliverable, this is the deadline, this is your invoice, and making it so transactional. So you're really bringing that connection and belonging to your work, which for freelancers and independent contractors can start to feel very transactional over time.
Completely. And I think that's the core question that we asked ourselves was how can you have a great experience of work, not for a few months as a freelancer, but for decades?
Yeah.
That you can have that belonging, that you can be connected to the people wherever you are. I live in a cabin in the Blue Ridge Mountains, actually, and I feel just as connected to my team where we're split up all over the world, really, because we primarily groove together.
So you talk about grooving together a few times throughout your day. How often are you doing these co-working sessions?
So weekly active users use the product on average 10 hours a week. So they're doing about 10
Wow.
sessions. So really it's 2 a day. And I think going back to that idea of if I'm a graphic designer or I'm a web developer or I'm a content creator, I could be spending 6 or 7 hours doing all the same task, really. Whatever that core creative output, what Groove comes in and it says, oh, okay, there's a 6-hour period, but maybe I'll break it into some chunks. I'll do a groove in the morning, I'll do a groove in the afternoon. Sometimes people will groove straight through. We definitely have power users that this is their office. Like this is their workplace. When they start in the morning, they come on, they'll do their first session. That gives them the kickstart that they need. And they'll chunk their work out. Because what I think we really are fortunate to have experienced is it helps you structure your time better. How long does it take me to do that task for a client? Maybe I thought it took 2 hours, it took an hour. Maybe I thought it takes an hour, but really it takes 2. You start to learn, how do I plan my day in the most effective ways?
Yeah.
So people on average do 2 sessions a day, but it really feels healthy to integrate it in a meaningful sense, to do a couple a day.
That's really interesting because I've been in masterminds before where we've done co-working sessions, and I even tried getting them started in the Chiron community, our Slack community, where we would come together for co-working sessions, but we were really only doing them in the mastermind situation and in Chiron. We were maybe only doing them once a month or so. And they were usually about 90-minute blocks where at the beginning, everyone would go kind of round robin. Okay, what's your goal? What do you want to focus on for the next hour? And then at the end, it's okay, did you get what you needed done? Did you get distracted? It's kind of that accountability check-in. And we would always turn our cameras off for the middle working block. So you're not, working and then also worrying about like, does my face look weird? Are people staring at me? Because you don't want to be self-conscious while trying to focus. But I'm wondering if that's why those sorts of arrangements never really took off, because they weren't frequent enough. But it sounds like what you're creating is more like a daily and even weekly routine of grooving and co-working.
Yeah, in my own life, the things that have been most powerful at changing my habits or optimizing my life are regular socially powered experiences, whether it's going to the group classes at a gym or climbing with my friends or going to a meditation center. Those are the things that have created staples in my life that I still do years later. And what's interesting about Groove is you can schedule sessions and allow people to join, whether from your network or other people within the platform, but it's also on demand. So there is that, I just allow it to fold into my cadence of my day. And I think one of the things that's really important, my perspective, when I left the conventional 9 to 5, I thought I was leaving structure behind. Now I can work when I want to work. I'll get up in the morning. I will start at 10:30 because I went to a yoga class, and I'll work till 9. Actually, what I realized by building Groove is that what I was looking for was more structure, but just more nuanced structure that actually allowed me to live the life that I wanted to live, that wasn't 9 to 5, but might have been broken up across my week or even my weekends in a way that felt healthy to me. And Groove really supports this new way of living where work can be integrated into my life in healthier ways.
Exactly. And I think that's really the key takeaway here is when you work a 9 to 5, or an 8 to 5 is more likely, you're being told you show up, you work from 8 to noon, you have a 1-hour lunch break, and then you work from 1 to 5. But a lot of people, 4 hours of focused, productive work with a lot of expectations breathing down your neck from a boss, that's not realistic. It's not fun. It's not enjoyable, and it's not doable. And yet, when you go the freelance or independent contractor route, oftentimes we're like, oh yeah, I can sleep until noon and I can work from 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. And I'm just going to, be this total night owl and be a total rebel and go against the entire system. We try to almost exaggeratedly swing to the opposite end of the spectrum compared to the W-2 world that we came from. And yet that doesn't work for us either. It's more about creating structure and routine that aligns with your natural energy patterns. So, we do this in my Energy Aligned Success Schedule workshop where we track our energy throughout the day for multiple days over a week. And you need to see, okay, where are your peaks? Where are your valleys? Some people, they're kind of like one big bell curve. Other people have 4 or 5 peaks of energy throughout the day. It's really understanding that and then designing a deliberate routine that works with that energy pattern. And if someone can place those groove sessions in their peaks where they're the most productive, they're getting double bang for their buck, essentially.
Completely. And I think the thing that really, to add to that, because I resonate with everything you shared, is, and when you add the social dimension, it really turbocharges everything.
Yeah.
Like that's really wow, okay, cool. I'm here, I'm doing it. It holds me accountable, not just within the session, but between the sessions. And it gives me, one of the things that I think I find most pleasing is when people share their accomplishments at the end of a session, especially if you're writing your next book or you're working on a podcast series or whatever, something that takes a lot of time. It's hard to feel a sense of accomplishment as I go through the process.
Yeah.
But there's something really profound of being seen to be accomplishing parts of what I want to get done. That gives me this, I say, like, you can ride the groove wave through the afternoon, even if you only do one session, because
Yeah.
you really give yourself that, I'm winning right now. And I
Yeah.
can ride that positive vortex as long as I need to.
And it's, I'm really glad you said that, because you kind of made me realize it's not so much about accountability. It's more about recognition, because as independent, solopreneurs, we don't get a lot of recognition for our work. We really only get recognition for whatever is on the invoice. And oftentimes with that, there's feedback and there's revision changes, and it's just not the same. It's not as gratifying. But when you join one of these co-working spaces and you say, oh, I did this, I got this done, you kind of get that instant gratification of, I'm being acknowledged for the time and energy that I'm putting into that nobody else would ever really see besides myself. And not to belabor the introvert point, but I mean, the idea initially for me as an introvert, thinking of having multiple groove sessions throughout my day or week at first kind of makes me bristle. I'm like, oh my God, social interaction regularly. I don't want to do that, but then at the same time, when I think about the other things that have been successful in my life in terms of healthy habit formation, like Orange Theory Fitness. Before COVID, I was a diehard Orange Theory member. I would go 4, 5, 6, sometimes 7 times a week. And it was because I knew other people were expecting me to be there. And also, if I didn't show up, I got charged $12, and I didn't like that. And then things like, I do Joe Dispenza week-long meditation retreats, and I show up for every meditation, even if it's 4 a.m. in the morning, I'm there, because there's that group sense of, even though there's 1,800 people here and nobody would really miss me if I was gone, it's still kind of that you have to be there. You have to show up for the group. You're drawn to it magnetically in a way. And so I think there's a lot to be said, even for people who tend to shy away from social situations. There's so much to be said for this social connection and co-working, that just the charge of the room and the recognition for you showing up and the draw to actually get shit done.
Completely. Yeah, I sometimes say it's weird but worth it.
Weird but worth it. I like that.
I think we've touched on it in a variety of different ways. Right now in life, it's just really hard to find authentic ways to be seen. That recognition piece is that we're yearning to just be seen in our journey, seen as ourselves. And when I walk a solo work career path, that's really difficult. And I think that's where I see it transform people's lives, and actually still be using the product 3-6 months later, is that you're you and I see you, and I'm going to share in this with you. And that's what we're looking for. And I think back to the introvert piece, it creates a safe way to do that. That doesn't feel overwhelming, that can feel regularly. And I think it's an important caveat. People bring their own network into the platform. Some of the people that I groove the most with are my friends from college, like people that I don't work with, or people that I shared a job with 10 years ago that I just like hanging out with. I don't want to set up other times to meet them, but really I'll groove with those people and ping them. Hey, you want to groove this week? And then it becomes a way to socialize purposefully, meaningfully. We share an experience, we hang out a little bit, and that's a private session. No one's going to join that. That's our time and space.
So you can create these private communities with people who you're already comfortable with within the Groove platform.
Yeah, so we'll start to see in the product over the coming months even more to support this behavior of, oh yeah, I'm part of a mastermind, or I'm part of another cohort, that people that I would like to be with more regularly, or I feel energize me in my day, I can group with those people. Those will be in my workplace. I use the metaphor of, if you designed your own WeWork, who are the people that you'd want to put in it if you could? Yeah. And now you can put people from anywhere because it's virtual. So you can have your variety of different friends, and even different friends at different times of day. Okay, you can have a different we work for the morning to the afternoon. And you really have agency and ownership to create that space for yourself, to give you what you need. You know, we really want to build the ultimate human-powered support system for people. And
I think
this is really the start of it.
It's just so much fun to say, hey, you want to groove together? Hey, I'm going to groove with these people in the afternoon. I mean, that's just fun to say right there. So on that note, we are going to take a super short commercial break. Hey, this is Ray. Ready to build a business that supports a life you love, a life you've always dreamed of? It's time to stop passively dealing with what's right in front of you and start deliberately designing your own future. That's exactly what we do in private business mentoring. You and I work together to create a completely custom to you business model that gives you everything you want and need while protecting you from stress and burnout. Ready to get started? Go to chironconsulting.us/mentoring to learn more. There you can also book a free call with me so we can start getting to know each other and see if mentoring is right for you. Plus, I love working with early stage entrepreneurs. That's why my mentoring packages are priced so low. I want you to soar. So don't worry about having to shell out thousands of dollars. Not here. Just go to chironconsulting.us/mentoring to learn more. All right, we are back with Josh Greene. So Josh, we've been talking about the Groove platform and, you know, this whole dynamic between introverts and extroverts and coworking and all of that. But that's not all that you're known for. One of the things that we talked about before we hopped on the episode was this idea of turning ideas into reality. And I love this. This is actually the entire premise of this podcast. Our tagline is turning the impossible into the inevitable. And really, that's what you're doing. You're taking these ideas, these just, oh, wouldn't that be cool if, or, oh, the world is missing this, and then you're actually creating it. So how did this really become a passion for you, turning ideas into reality?
You know, I think I've been always an experimenter since I was a little kid. I think I definitely can credit my parents for making me excited about experimenting, about taking things to bits, putting things back together, about seeing the world in different ways. And, you know, I think just as you asked the question, the thing that's most alive for me about turning ideas into reality is it's really just been about fostering curiosity and leaning into curiosity about things that I was curious, but really about things that I was inspired by. Because so much about turning ideas into reality is like 99% really understanding the idea and 1% doing something with it. You know, so really, because we have a culture at Groove, and this has really been an underpinning that I advocate everywhere I go, and is really led by my two co-founders. But I completely resonate and have learned a lot from going on this journey with them is the commitment to being in relationship with our customers or our users in an extreme way, turning ideas into reality. When you see something in the world, committing to exploring and understanding it in the most, like, I would say curious, but also say the most naive way, in the sense that if you look at the space that Groove's being built in, people are building what they call virtual offices all over the place. Yeah. You know, you can walk around a virtual office, you can get into the metaverse. We said, let's not assume that any of the previous solutions are the right way to build something for people's lives. Yeah. And I think that premise is so important for creating radical, real, meaningful innovation, to go, okay, I'm going to just listen. I'm going to listen without presupposing any solution. And that really has, you know, that's really opened up a lot in my own journey by being a little bit naive. When someone says, no, this is the playbook for being a designer, or this is the playbook for making this new product, maybe that is one way, but really I'm going to listen myself. And I think that has always fostered the impetus and the energy to actually manifest it, to actually go, oh, when I really feel connected to what I'm exploring, and I've been invested in that curiosity and that exploration, then the emergence is just, I can't hold myself back. Like, I don't know how to speak about it in any other way. Like, when we started Groove, it started because my co-founder really said, I miss going to coffee shops. I miss going to co-working spaces. What are we going to do about it? We just started having conversations. As we started having conversations and speaking to our friends, I couldn't not start building it. It just grabbed me and pulled me, really, because it was so meaningful as a way to impact the world. And I think hooking onto those energy sources is really the key to be able to driving to the place that you really should be going.
Well, and there's so much that you just said that I want to dig into. In particular, to start, this idea that there are certain ways that we've seen things be done. So if you're wanting to be a freelance writer or a freelance designer or a freelance social media manager, and you look at the way other people are doing that and you go, man, I don't know if I can do that because I don't want to have to do cold calling or do cold emailing or do LinkedIn outreach to get my clients. Just because someone else is doing something a certain way doesn't mean that that's the way that you have to do it. And when you're trying to turn an idea into reality, ultimately, for me, my perspective is it all has to come back to you. You can't look out there and just depend on, Google God to say, this is the way that you should be doing things. You have to look at, okay, I want to be a freelance writer. How would I like to actually do that? How would I work best in that role? Not what is everybody else doing, and therefore I have to do it that same way. But if this is going to be your long-term career, if this is really going to be what gets you to financial freedom, then it all has to come back to you, because if you can't sustain a certain model, it's going to fall apart. And so there's no point in looking outside of yourself. You have to look within yourself and at what really works for you, what you enjoy, what you don't enjoy, and design that to suit yourself. So there is no purpose of another model. There is no reason to follow someone else's playbook, because ultimately something in there is not going to fit you. Maybe it's everything, maybe it's one thing, but you're really the only source of that model that you can rely on long term.
Yeah, and I think you touched on it really in just how you describe, like, the mapping people's energies in the day and riding those waves. It's the same thing as you construct your career and you construct your life. And I know we've been discussing primarily in relation to solo workers, but we see people, freelancers, but we see that the whole world is looking for playbooks. Like, we're all looking for structured answers to, this is how I'm going to build this real estate company, or this is how I'm going to be the next content creator. But unless you can have a dialogue with yourself and really start to become aware of what's supportive of me, what helps me, and really the ideas to reality, the next thing that I was like super energized about is attracting the people around you that also are aligned. Because you can't do things on your own. Even if you're a freelancer, you're collaborating constantly on projects in different ways. So creating that community of the people that make me feel part of something bigger, whether I'm working as in the same company as them or not, is such a critical piece, and is fundamental to be able to bringing ideas to life. Is that, how do I collaborate with the people around me, and how do I track those people into me? Just comes back to this core relationship with myself, of clarity of what do I need and how do I thrive.
Yeah. And the other point of clarity that you mentioned, and I think this is so brilliant, because when we think about turning ideas, these potentially fleeting, intangible, amorphous things that just live in our minds, into reality, something that we can put an EIN number on and actually, have people show up on our website and say, hey, I'm interested in that thing that you're offering. And it start to actually be a living organism within our lives. That there's a big gap between there. There's a lot to do between the idea and the reality. And one of the things you said was that a huge part of that is getting really clear on the idea. And so just because you have an idea doesn't mean that that's actually the thing that's going to manifest. Maybe you need to think about, okay, why am I having this idea? What is the deeper need? What is the deeper reason that I'm trying to fulfill or address with this idea? And maybe it's digging into layers of that idea to really figure out what the thing is that you're going to bring into reality. So with all of that, I mean, it seems like such a big, daunting process. What is your advice for someone who maybe has a lot of ideas? And I think freelancers are notorious for this. We constantly come up with ideas and we're multi-passionate, and it's hard to turn the idea machine off. And so how would you advise someone who has all these ideas? Where would they even get started in turning one or more of them into reality?
Yeah, it's funny. As you were sharing that, I was thinking, wow, I want to scrap all of the things I just said. Uh, not exactly, but I think there's a beautiful tension in life, right? There's a tension in time scarcity and time abundance of, do I have infinite time to make something happen? Do I only have a week? Of this tension between doing stuff and thinking about stuff. Mm-hmm. And everything that we've been saying up until now is completely true. Like really understanding, unpacking, connecting to self, understanding what are the questions that are sitting, what is this human need that I'm curious, that I want to solve, what's this opportunity, what is the real opportunity? And at the same time, you only learn by doing.
Yeah.
And they're held, they're very equal. And I see it often, I see it with myself and I see it with my friends around me that, at the beginning, the hardest is to pick something. Mm-hmm. The truth is, you have to give yourself some time boundaries and pick something, because even if it's not right, Groove we've gone through hundreds of iterations of Groove by this point over the last year or so. That came because we had a hypothesis that maybe was true, and it was true for us. But then we gave it to 10 people, and then was it true for them? Maybe it was true for 6, but we learned a bunch more because it wasn't accurate for 4, and we had to find solutions from them. And then we gave it from 10 to 50, from 50 to 100, 100 to 500, and have been on this journey of learning as we give it to people, that the balance between inward looking and making stuff happen is how do I make the experiment of my hypothesis as small as possible, that's going to give me a meaningful enough data point that I can make the next decision. Because if you're really at the journey and you have 5 different things in front of you, what are the 3 that you're most excited about? And what's the quickest way you can validate which direction I should take by running some kind of experiment? And very practically, that might be, I should call 5 clients or potential clients. You might never get those clients, but can I have 5 conversations with potential clients? Can I put up a landing page on the internet using Squarespace that cost me $20 and run some Instagram ads for a few $100s to see, like, is there interest in this? Is there going to be customer demand in what I'm trying to do? So what are the smallest ways that I can validate, wow, there might be something here? Because really, from idea to next step is just like, is there enough that there's fertile soil? That's the language I would use. It's like, I don't know what's in the soil, but is there fertile soil? Before I start farming, or I guess having moved to a farm, I now just use agriculture as my reference point for all metaphors. But really, that's the first step for me from ideation to reality, is what's the smallest way I can figure out, is this soil worth digging in? Should I be planting something in here? Because once I do that, again, I unlock more energy, I create more focus. I'm just looking for these cycles that reinforce it as I start to build something. Because the more that I can get into that iterative mindset, it's really the same fractal process that's going to unfold over time anyway.
Yeah. And I think every time we have an idea, the biggest challenge is that threshold from idea to action. And I love that you mentioned this, this market viable product kind of concept, because I've worked with a number of different companies that are launching apps on the Cornell side. And of course, every time I talk to the app creators, they're like, oh yeah, we want it to do this and this and this and this and this. We're going to have these features, and then people can do this and they can do this. And I'm like, okay, but it's going to take you 4 years to build that. I know you don't want to go to market in 4 years. You want to go to market in 4 months. So how can we shrink and shrink and shrink and shrink? What is the MVP? What is the market viable product? The smallest thing that we can offer that's attractive and has legs, but that we can then learn from to start expanding and offering those additional features over time. So you kind of have to do that with your ideas. You're like, oh yeah, I could do this and I could have all these options and then I could create this passive revenue stream and then I could do this and this and this. Okay, but where are you going to start? And if we can shrink that idea down to its smallest digestible piece, then that threshold from idea to action gets much shorter. It gets much easier to cross over. Then, of course, we have to deal with some of these kind of unseen, I don't want to talk about it kind of threshold barriers, like the fear of failing, the fear of imposter syndrome. With you and your coworkers or your co-founders, I should say, did you guys go through that fear of failure, the imposter syndrome feeling, or did you allow your curiosity, which I know you spoke a lot about at the beginning of our episode, did you kind of allow that to override all of those invisible mental barriers that we often run up against?
Yeah, for sure there was anxiety and imposter syndrome, and there still is. I think the wonderful thing about this process of making things small, like the first thing we did was just ping out to our friends on Facebook and say, are you interested in some virtual co-working sessions? We hacked it together on Zoom. We set up a WhatsApp group. It was so low lift. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't over threshold in terms of, it felt very safe and doable. There was no branding, there was no name. There was just, we see that there's something here and we want to learn more about it. So let's try. And I hope that the experiment that you can do is so small that it doesn't feel overwhelming. And I think, to just what you were sharing about that shift from an app to, it's going to take 4 years to 4 months to a month, there's so much you can learn without having to build anything or write any code to give you an insight of, should I be building this as a business? Should I be doing this myself? And this is an exaggeration, but it's something that I heard about entrepreneurs. First time entrepreneurs focus on the product that they're selling, and second time entrepreneurs focus on the distribution of the product. And it stuck with me. I don't know if it's true or it's not true, but it definitely emphasized, you can have the best thing in the world, but if you have no idea how you're going to take it out into the world, and that might not mean that the product changes, but that might be the messaging changes or the positioning. I often speak to friends that are designers and they'll reposition their work in different packages versus hourly. And you see that their rates shoot up, the amount of work they have shoots up, how they package up what they're selling, even if what they're selling is exactly the same product. Yeah. And I think those distribution product conversations, experiments, are so critical at the early stages, because they'll accelerate so much of what you're doing over that period. Because if I can pre-sell 20 clients on something, I haven't even really figured out what it is, I'm damn well going to figure out what it is, even if I don't know what it is today.
Yeah, and it's committing to that iterative process and that willingness to just take these little bite-sized steps, to be curious, to be willing to be proven wrong, so that okay, this is actually what's right. This idea, I thought this hypothesis I had, that actually didn't turn out to be true, but I got so much information that now I know that this is true over here, this other thing, and I can work with that. I can build on that, and just almost detaching our egos from it, not letting go of your passion for the thing, but realizing that as you're launching a business, as you're getting started, you have to start somewhere. And 99 times out of 100, where you start is never where you end up. And that's okay. That's part of the creative process. And there's so much to learn that you can't help but iterate that thing if you want it to live.
Yeah, completely. And I might, forgive me if I sound like a broken record. And I think in these tough times, these emergent times at the beginning of something that you might be building, that's where community is so critical. Because on your own, it's hard to get perspective, especially if you're a solo founder, solo entrepreneur. So who are the people that I need around me? How should I be interacting with those people? What cadence? I've been involved with masterminds. I'm a massive advocate for peer-led sessions every week, or just friends to check in with. That those are the people that help regulate your emotions about it, the ups and downs, and all of those things that maybe on my own I just wouldn't get that perspective, or just wouldn't be feeling energized about what I'm doing. So yeah, it really is that layer. Clearly, I'm someone building social products, but clearly that is the layer that transforms things and makes so much more possible that wouldn't be without human connection and relating.
Absolutely. Well, I love everything that you guys are creating at Groove. I think it's phenomenal. I think it's so needed, and it's perfect for this economy that is going increasingly freelance. We're turning more and more into a gig economy. And with that, we need even more connection for all of us who are going solo. So where can people check you out? Where can they learn more about you and your work?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's super easy. You can jump on our website is groove.oo, out of office. Really easy. You can find us. We're never going to be in the office. Maybe some people will use us in the office, but everything that you need is on there. And also I'll share, so you can share with your listeners, a direct link that allows you to bypass the waiting list and get straight into the product. We really want to support freelancers and independent contractors building their workplace, and it's a very simple way. It's a super intuitive way, and it fits into your life as much as you need it.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. That's huge. Thank you. Thanks for being here.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time. It's wonderful to share and hear your reflections on everything that we're doing.
Thanks, Josh. Hey, Ray here again. Thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, please subscribe and rate us in your favorite podcasting platform. Want to be a guest on the show or know someone who has an amazing story of entrepreneurship? Apply on our website at chironconsulting.us/podcast.